Can a group of individuals who resonate truly change the world? The answer is not a motivational poster. It is a documented pattern that runs through the history of science, politics, art, and civilization itself. The people you spend time with do not just affect your mood. They reshape your brain, alter your behavior, and determine what you believe is possible. This is not a metaphor. It is biology, philosophy, and history working together. Over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Aristotle wrote that human beings are, by nature, political animals. He did not mean that we love arguing about elections. He meant that we are creatures who can only become fully ourselves inside a community. Alone, Aristotle argued, a person is either a beast or a god. The life of reason, virtue, and meaningful action requires other people. This idea runs through nearly every major school of philosophy. The Stoics believed that our character is formed through constant friction with others. The philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most widely read thinkers of the ancient world, taught that we must choose carefully who we allow to influence us. He wrote that we become like the people we spend the most time with, not through some mystical force, but through the steady, daily practice of imitating, arguing with, and being shaped by those around us. Centuries later, the German philosopher Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel proposed that human consciousness does not develop in isolation. He argued that we come to understand ourselves only through our relationships with others, through what he called mutual recognition. You do not know who you are until another person sees you and responds to you. This is not poetry. It is an argument about the structure of human identity. The self is fundamentally social. John Stuart Mill, one of the founders of modern liberal thought, went further in a practical direction. In his essay on liberty, he argued that ideas grow stronger or weaker depending on the company they keep. A belief held only in isolation becomes brittle and eventually hollow. A belief tested, refined, and shared among people who take it seriously becomes stronger and more capable of action. The group, in Mill's view, is not just where we find comfort. It is where ideas either die or grow into something powerful enough to change the world. What neuroscience has since confirmed. Philosophy built the argument from logic and observation. Neuroscience has since shown the same thing happening inside the brain. In the 1990s, Italian neuroscientists led by Giacomo Rizzolatti discovered what are now called mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire not only when you perform an action, but also when you simply watch someone else perform it. Your brain, at the level of individual neurons, does not fully distinguish between doing something and watching someone you are close to do it. This discovery reframed how we think about learning, empathy, and identity. The people around you are not just influencing your thinking. They are, in a measurable sense, running inside your head. Building on this, social neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness and connection. His research demonstrated that the human nervous system is wired for social synchrony. When people feel genuinely connected to others who share their values and goals, their brains produce different neurochemical patterns than when they feel isolated or surrounded by people with conflicting outlooks. Specifically, environments of genuine resonance reduce the production of cortisol, the stress hormone, and increase the brain's capacity for what researchers call executive function, the ability to plan, persist, regulate emotion, and work toward long-term goals. In short, the right social environment does not just make you feel better. It makes you measurably more capable. The concept of neuroplasticity adds another layer. The brain is not fixed. It rewires itself continuously based on experience and environment. Repeated exposure to certain types of thinking, problem-solving, and emotional response literally changes the physical structure of the brain over time. This means that surrounding yourself with people who think in particular ways is not just motivationally useful. It is architecturally significant. You are, with every sustained relationship, slowly renovating the structure of your own mind. Research into social contagion has extended these findings further. Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler, in their landmark studies published in the late 2000s, showed that behaviors, habits, and even moods spread through social networks in patterns similar to the spread of viruses. Their data showed that the influence of a single person in a social network extends to at least 3 degrees of connection, meaning that your behavior affects not just the people you know, but the people who know the people you know. A group of individuals who share a common orientation toward the world does not just reinforce itself, it radiates outward. So, what's the pattern? The evidence from history follows exactly the pattern that philosophy predicted and neuroscience has since explained. The scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries was not produced by isolated geniuses working alone. It was produced by tight, deliberate networks of people who sought each other out specifically because they shared an orientation toward empirical inquiry. Galileo corresponded intensely with Kepler. Newton built on the work of dozens of colleagues. The Royal Society of London, founded in 1660, was an explicit institutional attempt to gather like-minded people together so that their ideas could sharpen each other. The revolution did not happen because smart people existed. Smart people had always existed. It happened because smart people with a shared commitment to a particular way of understanding the world found each other and built structures that let them work together. The Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s is another example. The explosion of Black artistic, intellectual, and political achievement centered in New York during that period was not accidental. It grew directly from the deliberate gathering of writers, musicians, painters, and philosophers who recognized in each other a shared vision. Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Duke Ellington, and many others did not simply happen to live near one another. They actively built a community of resonance, salons, magazines, mentorships, arguments, and collaborations that created the conditions for work of lasting historical significance. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s in the United States operated on the same logic. Its leaders understood that moral courage is not simply an individual trait. It is something that grows in community. The mass meetings, the church gatherings, the training sessions in nonviolent resistance, all of these were social technologies designed to create a shared identity strong enough to withstand violence and maintain purpose under pressure. The movement did not depend on any single charismatic leader. It depended on a network of people whose shared values had become mutually reinforcing to the point where collective action became possible on a large scale. What resonance actually means? It would be a mistake to read this argument as a case for surrounding yourself only with people who agree with you about everything. That is not resonance. That is an echo chamber, and it produces the opposite of what we are describing. Genuine resonance is a shared orientation toward truth, rigor, and growth, not a shared set of conclusions. The scientists of the Royal Society disagreed constantly. The writers of the Harlem Renaissance argued fiercely. The activists of the civil rights movement held a wide range of tactical and theological views. What they shared was not a uniform opinion. They shared a commitment to taking ideas seriously, to holding each other to high standards, and to a common purpose that was larger than any individual. The philosopher Karl Popper called this the open society, a community held together not by shared dogma but by shared methods of inquiry and shared commitment to revising beliefs in response to evidence. In an open society, disagreement is not a failure of resonance. It is one of its defining features. What matters is that the disagreement happens between people who fundamentally respect each other's capacity for reason and share a commitment to getting things right. This distinction matters practically. Research in organizational psychology has consistently shown that the most innovative and effective teams are not the ones where everyone agrees. They are the ones where people share a foundation of mutual trust and common purpose while actively maintaining a diversity of perspective and approach. The resonance is at the level of values and commitment, not at the level of specific beliefs. Agreement at the level of values, disagreement at the level of ideas. That is the structure of every genuinely generative community in history. The question we started with was whether a group of like-minded individuals can truly change the world? We now have enough to answer it properly. A group of people who resonate with each other at the level of values and commitment produces several concrete effects. Their mirror neurons are synchronizing not just to pleasant social cues, but to shared ways of thinking through problems. Their reduced cortisol and enhanced executive function means they are literally more capable of the sustained, long-term effort that significant change requires. Their ideas are passing through the kind of critical social testing that Mill identified as necessary for any belief to grow strong enough to act on. Their behavior and conviction are spreading outward through their social networks to people they have never met. And the structure of their shared work is creating new social facts, institutions, publications, organizations, and movements that outlast any individual. None of this is magic. None of it requires any belief in hidden forces or collective consciousness. It is straightforward biology and social science operating at scale. The reason like-minded groups change the world is not that they have some special spiritual energy. It is that they have solved, at least partially, the coordination problem that makes large-scale human action so difficult. They have built the conditions under which sustained, high-quality, purpose-driven work can happen. The more precise question, then, is not whether this is possible. History has answered that. The question is what kind of community, built around what kind of shared orientation, and committed to what kind of work. Those are the choices that matter. The science and philosophy do not tell you what to care about. They tell you that caring about it with the right people, people who will sharpen you rather than simply validate you, will determine whether caring about it does anything at all. The world has been changed, repeatedly, by groups of people who found each other. Not because finding each other is inspiring, but because the human brain, built for social life, operates at a higher level of function when it is embedded in relationships of genuine resonance. Because ideas, tested and refined in community, become stronger than ideas held alone. Because behavior is contagious and commitment spreads. Because history is not made by isolated individuals who happen to be brilliant. It is made by networks of individuals who were brilliant enough to know that they needed each other. Choose the people around you as carefully as you choose what to believe. They are, in the most literal sense neuroscience can offer, part of how you think,
speak, act, spread.
And never forget, you matter.